Hey, are you ready to turn your podcast into an authority engine and not just more content? Well, I think you're in the right place. Welcome to Influential Voices of Authority. This is where we talk to amazing people each and every week. It's a podcast for coaches, consultants, and experts who are ready to stop being the best kept secret in their niche and step out and start being that sought after authority. I'm Erik K. Johnson, podcast talent coach and media veteran. Each week here on the show, we talk to a variety of industry leaders and people who are experts not only in their industry, but experts at getting in front of their ideal audience, attracting their ideal clients, and using their podcast to grow their business. They use their voice, their message, and their platform to build trust, grow their audience, and attract premium clients. That's what the show's all about. That's what I want to help you do each and every episode. If you're ready to turn your voice into your greatest asset, then you're in the right place. Welcome to Influential Voices of Authority. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like your podcast should be doing a lot more for your business than it is right now? Man, I've been there. I've been stuck just feeling like I'm putting in all this time and effort and money, and I should be so much further along. What is going on? Like, you're putting in the time, you're showing up consistently, you're publishing episodes, you're there every week. Maybe you've got 20 episodes or 120 episodes or 500 episodes, but you're just not turning that content into clients. I've felt like that many times in the past until I discovered the process of using your podcast to step into your zone of genius and really be who you are. If your podcast isn't creating opportunities, then it's definitely not positioning you as the go-to authority in your space. Trust me, you're not alone. I hear that from a lot of individuals. The problem isn't your consistency. The problem is you're creating content, but you're not creating authority. You're not stepping out and being seen as the authority in your space. And there's a big difference between content and authority. Most people create content to teach, to inform, and to entertain, but they're not teaching content to build authority. Content teaches, authority converts, which means your authority converts your listeners and your guests and your peers into clients. Content gives information. Authority creates belief. And that's where the big difference lies right there. If your podcast is just a series of episodes where you're sharing tips and tricks and strategies and ideas, then you're running down the wrong path. If you're not intentionally positioning yourself as the guide who can help your audience get there, then your audience may learn from you. They may get some great information, but they're never going to hire you because they're getting all the information they need. And that's the gap. That's the gap. And I know deep inside, if you're like me, you feel like, well, if I'm not giving them value, they're not going to hire me either. And I always thought about that because I would watch these training episodes. I was watching Russell Brunson teach his perfect webinar and how he would really lean into the problem and the pain and agitate that pain. And he would show people that he really understood the problem they were facing. And then he would show like here's the 3 steps to success and then make the offer. And I thought, man, you're sitting through an hour-long webinar and you're not getting the strategies and the tips to succeed. You're just agitating the pain. And so you sit there for an hour through this webinar and you might get the 3 steps, but you don't know how to do it unless you go and buy the program. And I thought that was always misleading until I really understood that when you watch a great webinar and a great training, and the host of the webinar and the training and the podcast communicates in a way that they really, truly, deeply understand your problem, even more clearly than you do, where you're listening to them talk and you're like, man, are you reading my email? Are you reading my journal? Are you reading my mail? What's going on here? How do you know what I'm thinking? When you understand that, when you can communicate that in your content, like you have a problem and a challenge, and I understand that challenge. When you can get your audience to believe that, if they believe you understand the problem, they subconsciously believe that you also understand what the answer is and that you have the answer to get them there. So stop worrying about creating so much content because you're not creating value. When you show people that you understand the challenge, you're creating that value for them. And you start to close the gap between teaching and getting hired. It's exactly what I teach in Ultimate Mic Mastery, and it's exactly what I teach in my Podcast Profit Master Plan, which is my 3-day weekend. There are 6 key elements to turning your podcast into a client-generating machine. Today, I don't have a time to go through all 6 of them because I have a great interview for you that I want to get to. I want to focus on one of the most important and most overlooked pieces of that 6-step process, and that's positioning. How you position yourself in your market. Positioning is where you move from being one of many and competing in a crowded space to becoming the only choice, to being a category of one. When you can position yourself as the expert, you're a category of one. You're uncomparable. Nobody can compare you to everybody else. It's where your audience stops comparing you to everybody else in the niche because you've now separated yourself from them. If you think of Oprah Winfrey, back when Oprah first started doing her television show, she was doing the show just like everybody else. Sally Jesse Raphael, Phil Donahue, Geraldo Rivera, they were all doing the same show, this sensationalist tabloid sort of TV. And then Oprah finally decided she didn't want to do that anymore. Matter of fact, it was called the Oprah Winfrey Show. She wanted to start doing the show on her own terms, the way she wanted to do it. She started talking to guests that she wanted to talk to. She started talking about topics that she wanted to talk about. She started talking about her weight loss challenges. She started talking about books that she loved. And all of a sudden, everybody stayed here, and Oprah went way up, steps, leaps above everybody else. And so much so that it stopped being the Oprah Winfrey Show and it just became Oprah because she became a category of one. She was untouchable. And that's how you separate yourself from everybody else. People start seeing you as the obvious next step. But here's where most podcasters get it wrong. They think positioning is about a clever tagline or a niche or a polished intro, but it's not. Positioning is about how you show up in your content. Positioning is about being yourself. It's about having that moxie and that confidence to step into that spotlight. It's about how you lead the conversation. It's about whether or not your audience sees you as the expert and what you're doing to make them see you as the expert. If you're not doing that, they're just seeing you as another host asking questions on a random interview. But here's the real truth. If your podcast is built entirely around your guest's expertise and you're just asking great questions, then your guest becomes the authority, not you. And that's where you fall down. That's why so many podcasters feel stuck. They're creating great conversations with great guests, but they're accidentally promoting everyone else's authority instead of building their own authority. If you want to be the authority in your niche, you need to take control. Because if you don't take control of that, your podcast just becomes a hobby, not a growth engine. So how do we fix it? You become the guide. You show them that you truly understand their problem inside and out, almost better than they do. Because when you can show them you understand the problem, they'll understand that you have the solution. And you have to do it in every episode and in every conversation. You don't just introduce the guest, you frame the conversation. You teach before the interview. You highlight the lesson that the interview will deliver, just like I'm doing right here. Because when you reinforce the takeaway of the interview, you're not just another interviewer. You are the authority who uses conversations to prove your expertise. And that's a completely different role. It's a completely different role than just being a great interviewer. And when you make that shift, everything changes. Your audience starts to see patterns in the things that you present. They start to understand how you think. They start to trust your process. You start to make that connection. But more importantly, they start to believe that you can help them because you understand the problem so well. And that's why I've invited Danielle Weil to be on the show today. Danielle is a brilliant marketer. She has nearly 20 years of marketing experience. She is someone who has been behind the scenes of multi-million-dollar launches, and someone who, like many other experts, spent a long time operating as what I like to call the best kept secret in her niche. She's been behind the scenes. And as you listen to this conversation that I have with Danielle, I want you to pay attention to something specific. I want you to listen for the moments where clarity shows up after action. Because she waited and she waited and she waited and she finally took action and big things happened for her. Listen for how her authority begins to expand once she steps out from behind the scenes, steps into her authority and into that spotlight because she takes action. And listen for the decisions that she made that shifted her from doing great work to actually being seen for that work. This isn't just another interview. This is a case study of what I've just taught you. It's a real world example of what happens when expertise finally meets authority. When expertise finally meets visibility, and that expertise and visibility generate even more authority. So if you're ready to make that shift in your own podcast and your own business, this is exactly where it begins. Danielle Weil is a copy marketing strategist. She writes amazing copy for some really, really big launches. She's the creator of Launch Flow, which helps expert business owners build a fun, profitable, sustainable launch engine. And since 2006, she's written dozens of 6- and 7-figure launches. She's generated over $170 million in sales for her clients. And she's mentored business owners to break their own sales records while launching in a way that creates flow and momentum. Grab something to write with. This is an amazing conversation with Danielle Weil. Danielle, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming along. It's great to see you again.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I'm super excited to chat with you. You just launched a new podcast recently. I'm usually talking to people who are well into their podcast. You've been in business for a long time, but recently launched the show Market Like a Parent. Tell me about the process that you've gone through launching this show and the emotional roller coaster that you've experienced.
So the first thing to know about this is this podcast has been an idea in the back of my mind for about 3 years.
That's not uncommon.
I didn't set out to start a podcast. Like you said, I've been in business for almost 20 years now. And I was happy doing what I was doing. And I had this idea that didn't fit into the offers and programs that I had. And it was about, because I'm a mom of 4 and a marketer, and I've been doing this a long time, and it's about the connections between marketing and parenting and what one can teach us about the other. And every time a story would come up or I'd think of an idea, like it just wouldn't go away. And I was like, I want to launch the show. It might want to be a book. It might want to be a podcast. I don't know how it fits into my business, but these are things that I have to say. And so I was at PodFest, I think a couple years ago, and I bought a domain name. It's like, all right, I'm doing it. I bought the domain. Actually, I bought Parent Like a Marketer was the domain that I bought. That was the name that I had. And then I did nothing with it. I'm not there yet. I was launching other things. I was launching other offers, wasn't ready. And Then I was at Podfest last year and I was like, this is the year. This is the year it's happening. I ended up over the summer booking a studio, doing all the outlines in advance for the first season. I outlined 11 or 12 episodes. I booked 2 mornings in the studio because I had plans just to do like a solo capsule season. Let's just get this out and see what it wants to be afterwards. And I went in and I had like, I don't know, 5 or 6 different changes of clothes in this, this room. And I recorded the whole first season just like that. So, and
Was
then
it also, were they all solo episodes? Just
they
you?
were all solo episodes.
Okay.
They're all short. The first
All
season
right.
is I don't know, they're 5 to 15 minutes each.
Okay.
They're short, quick takeaways, like here's a marketing lesson, here's a parenting lesson, here's some stories. Really wanted to make those connections. And I had so much fun doing it. I was like, I put all this effort in. I can't not keep going with it. I did a launch party for some of my friends when we launched the show. Some business friends, we got everybody in a room to bring, get the word out about the show, and everyone came with their own ideas and how marketing is like parenting and vice versa. And they came with their own stories. And I'm like, there's at least another 20, 30 episodes in here. I can't stop now.
Yeah. So when you got done with the 12 and they were like, all right, there's 12 in the bed. Now just got to edit them. What was going through your mind? How did that feel knocking out the 12?
It felt really good and also really scary. It was that exhilarating. And I'm lucky that I have an amazing right-hand woman on my team who actually did all of the editing and all of the parts that if I had done the editing, probably would have never seen the light of day because I would have been overly critical of like, no, I didn't say this right. I didn't look
Right.
this right. I'm just like, nope, let's go ship them. So I guess my best advice is if you have trouble with that and you start to get self-conscious about those things, just outsource it. Let someone else do it.
Yeah. They're not as close to it. They can make those tough decisions without feeling like it's their baby and they have to do all of the hard decisions. So you've been part of many, many, many launches. And this one kind of unique. So now we're launching a podcast 20 years into your business. Uh, when you hit publish and you saw on your phone your episode was live, was it just another launch or did you have something? Was there a sense of emotion going through you?
I think a little bit of both. On the one hand, I was very focused on the mechanics of, okay, we have this live. Are we getting reviews? Are we sending out emails to the list about it? It's not live on Apple Podcasts. How do we troubleshoot that? It's been a nightmare. Um,
Yes, every platform's easy except for Apple.
Now you tell me.
Yeah. Once you get in, though, it's all good. Once you click the right buttons and you go through the whole process. But man, are there some hoops.
And yet there was also a real feeling of this thing has been in the works for 3 years. It's a project that, yes, I'm sharing my expertise around marketing, but doesn't fit into the box of what I've taught until now. It's something a little bit new, a little bit different, a little bit more personal. I share stories about what it's like, raising my kids on a kibbutz in Israel and what life is like here. It's a little bit different, I think, than the way that I grew up. And so all of that together felt like a little bit more of a big deal than just your average launch.
So 3 years ago, you purchased Parent Like a Marketer, but now it's Market Like a Parent. Uh, what's the difference between the two? How do you envision the
So
the nuances?
the full title actually is Market Like a Parent, and then in parentheses it's Parent Like a Marketer because I
Okay.
really wanted it to be about the dialogue between both. Yes, it's a marketing podcast, which is why the market part comes first.
Yeah.
But I also want people to take away kind of some insights on parenting too. And so the dialogue for me was really about the title. Maybe it's too long, maybe it's too clunky, maybe it's not, optimized. I
Well,
went
it's
back and
uniquely
forth
you,
on
so
it.
you're all good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about you. So, it's brand new, it's fresh. There's such opportunity ahead of you. And in your business, you're teaching people, helping people launch and launch properly with great success. How do you see the podcast helping you grow your authority in that marketing niche and helping you in your business?
I think the way that I looked at it from the beginning was I want this podcast out in the world. I want this content out, even if it doesn't directly feed into Launch Flow, which is my core offer.
Yeah.
But my hope was that people will listen, they will relate in some way to what we're talking about. They'll get a nugget, they'll get a lot of value, and they'll come explore. And so it wasn't like I would normally teach my clients, which is if you're going to create a top of funnel content engine, make it directly related to your offers. So I did not follow my own advice there. I have other things that feed into those offers. This specifically was more of a passion project, and I'm I know that it will serve my business. I'm just not sure quite how yet.
Yeah, a lot of people are like that, and that's okay because as you create content and it ebbs and flows and it evolves over time, people get to know, like, and trust you through the content, and it probably will open doors that will surprise you down the way and really build that authority in your niche. So over the years, over the 20 years you've been in business, how have you been building authority? How have you been getting in front of your ideal client?
Yeah. So for many of those years, I was actually behind the scenes. I was
Okay.
working as a copywriter. I was the one writing all the words, in the back room with the typewriter.
Give me an
Um,
example. What was it? What would be a big launch that you would have worked on?
so I have actually written 16 seven-figure launches for people
Holy cow.
like Ryan Levesque, Todd Herman, Selena Sue, Marisa Murgatroyd, Danny Elliott Miracy. Um,
Is there a launch that you've been part of that you're super proud of that just was like feather in your cap? Like at the end of the day, like fantastic. I'm so proud of the way that came off.
I think all of them in some way have been points of points of pride, but the one that is the most memorable to me was I think is 2020, right? Working behind the scenes with Ryan, and we had, can't say too much about it, but we had a very short time window to get everything done for a new offer. Lots of moving pieces, lots of copy moving pieces, and lots of new strategy that had to be shifted at the last minute. And the results of that launch were, I think, the biggest one he's ever done.
Oh,
So,
wow. Was that the first one you had worked on with him?
mm-mm.
Oh,
No, it
you had
was
worked
the
others.
third or fourth.
Got it. All right. So things are really starting to click now and the parts are coming into place. And are you, so Ryan's got a very specific ask method that he goes through. Do you use a lot of your same principles with all of your launches, or do you tailor it specifically to the individual client?
Um, to think about this one actually. So this is actually how the launch flow method developed, because I went back when I made the shift from, okay, I'm going to be behind the scenes writing launches to I'm going to be uh, out there teaching and coaching and consulting on launches, because that
Yep.
was a shift. Um, I looked back at all of the launches that I'd been a part of and what they all had in common and the process that we went through behind the scenes as a marketing team, as a company to make that happen. And I identified 5 key pieces that had to be in place and aligned for the launch itself to work. And some of them, are obvious, right? Like you have to have the right offer. You have to know your ideal client. Um, and then some of them are a little bit less obvious. In other words, I talk about the energy flow of, is there, are you managing your own energy well, your company's energy well, your team's energy well? Are you feeling in flow about your offer? And is it working? And do you feel right about it? Or is there something that feels off and forced? And I think a lot of times we neglect that energy piece. We just tend to push through on things. And it's something that I noticed between the launches that worked well and those that worked less well, is that something was off with the energy.
Interesting. What was it like? Tell me about the day you realized that. Like you're going through the research, the analysis, looking at all of them, and you're like, aha. Tell me about that moment.
So it wasn't one moment.
Okay.
It was I was putting this framework together and there was a piece missing. And I had been teaching for about launches for a couple of years now before Launch Flow developed. Um, from a messaging perspective, from an offer perspective, from a straight up marketing perspective, I wasn't thinking about the energy piece. And then I joined a program and went through a specific framework for launching that this person was teaching. And it was very regimented, do this specific thing at this specific time in this specific way on this specific platform. And that thing happened to be showing up and doing live video on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever. And that thing made me completely miserable. In other words, I would show up and there would be, there's that lag when you're doing a live and like people are typing comments, but you have to wait and you can't see the comments until a minute later. That
Yes.
dynamic just threw me off my game because I'm used to being either in a Zoom room or face to face, and I can see the reactions of people
Yeah, totally
and
in the
and
moment.
in the moment and reacted to it. And the videos that came out of that, I mean, I'm embarrassed to, they might still be on my Instagram, God knows. But they're just so awkward because I'm like waiting for comments and pause. It just did not work. And after that launch, and I also did not sell anything. And after that launch, I was like, we're never doing this again. And I went back and I thought, well, where do I do well? What are my strengths? What am I good at as a person, as a marketer, as a teacher? It is webinars, it's workshops, it's getting in there with people live, workshopping in real time. That's what we're going to do. That next launch, I had the biggest cohort I ever had
Oh, wow.
because I went back to doing it in a way that was in flow for me.
Yeah, totally in the moment, engaging with the people in the room and ebbing and flowing with the energy of the audience.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Love it. What's really working in launches right now?
What is working right now depends on, first of all, kind of what you're launching, but not what was working 5 or 10 years ago. Let's just put it that way.
It seems that's the case, right? It's the cycle. Things are changing. As soon as you master it, there's something new.
There is something new, and there's also where we are, I think, in terms of market sophistication,
Yeah.
right? If 5 years ago the space was less crowded than it is right now,
Hmm.
now it's very crowded, and Eugene Schwartz level of awareness, you have to just get a little bit more sophisticated with your messaging and your mechanism. So both of those things have to evolve. And at some point, they get so sophisticated that we kind of get bumped back to the personal connection. In
Okay.
other words, that is the thing that I'm seeing more than anything else. The people who have elements of personal connection and conversation built into their launches, even if some of it, even if the beginning part, the hand raising part is automated, the people who are making personal connections are doing well.
That's what this show is all about is how do we take your content and take it from being steps A through Z and turn it into being more of the context you wrap around the content, and how do you be more of yourself? How do you share your story and your journey to not only teach people the 6 steps to success, but make them believe that they can do it too by the stories and the emotion that you share with them on each and every show.
Yeah. And I think the podcast as a platform is a great platform to do that. The other thing that I'm seeing happen with launches is that the runways are longer.
Do they
And
need to be
so
longer or are people making them longer just to be longer?
um,
Is the sales cycle longer?
the sales cycle is longer.
Okay.
Starting to notice more of that.
So
And
in that long sales cycle, is a webinar still is still valid? Is a 60-minute conversation still enough to sell somebody in, or does it need to be a longer nurture sequence to get to that sale?
so the way that I'm shifting and we're shifting to build these things is multiple entry points. So you build a launch not with one webinar that opens the cart and then, the cart closes. You have
Yep.
multiple paths, multiple entry points, and you have a pre-launch that is designed to get people to raise their hand for your warmest leads to be able to raise their hand and get in before you even open the doors. And
Got it.
so stacking sort of multiple conversion points um, through the launch instead of having a spike that open cart goes way, way, way up and then it goes way, 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 way down. You've got a little bit more of a heartbeat rhythm where things are steadier over a longer period of time.
Got it. Okay. How long should that window be right now? I know it's always ebbing and flowing, but today, how long do you see from the time you start warming people up with the, hey, I got something big coming, to cart close, we're starting on Monday? What do you see that runway being?
It depends on the offer and it depends on the launch. It also depends on what you want and what your schedule has the capacity for. But
Okay.
generally speaking, it's harder to get an hour of someone's time live than it used to be.
Yeah.
People's schedules are busier. I don't know if you're finding this, but if you want people to RSVP for a live workshop, you've got to start promoting it a couple weeks in advance. You've got your early people. I start at least 2 to 3 weeks. And yes, you'll see a bunch of registrations come in just the couple days before because you're always going to have those last minute people. Oh, yeah. They get reminded and then that's fine. But I have people register in advance and show up and have it on their calendars. And I'm in conversation with them beforehand. The other thing that you can do is when someone signs up for your workshop is offer them a chat with you. So on the thank you page, you can get to know them even before they come to the workshop. You can connect with them on LinkedIn. You can connect with them on other platforms, right? So adding layers of personal connection. And so someone is not just a name on a list that's registered, but someone who you're offering multiple opportunities to build a relationship with.
Yeah, it's a great way to make sure that the information you're offering in the workshop or webinar is tailored to the people in the room. So I want to make sure I give you exactly what you're coming for. So let's talk about your specific situation, and then you can kind of tailor the presentation to the four instances and the examples that you have in the room.
Exactly.
Tell me about the biggest mistake you've seen someone make in a launch that you just slapped your head and you were like, "Oh, that's going to cost you."
Um, Thinking about this for a minute. How much I can share.
It's always tough when you're talking about clients, how much you can share.
Going between two and like one is a bigger launch and one is a smaller launch. But I think this will resonate in either way because it really does speak to the point of having your launch match your stage of business. I had a friend, client, student who was planning her launch and she was planning a really big ordeal, right? It was 3 videos and a webinar and a big open cart sequence and a Q&A call. And she had all of these events and assets and things planned out on the calendar. But her audience wasn't big enough to sustain that size launch yet. She planned it that way because that's what she was told to do. It's like, no, you've got to do all of these things in this order because that's how you launch. But if she had tried to launch that way to the list size she had, they would have gotten really burned out really, really quickly. And it wouldn't necessarily have worked. And so there's some cases where it makes sense to scale back what you're doing. and launch for the stage of business that you're at, as opposed to what you see everyone else doing, which is not how they were launching when they had an audience the size that you have.
Were you able to intercept it before she launched, or did she go through that whole
Yes,
process?
we
Okay.
redesigned the flow. We redesigned the launch flow. We got rid of the 3 videos. We focused on one key workshop and really strong messaging throughout. And I believe that launched it very well.
Good. What was the offer? Like, how big was the offer?
The offer was it was a 5K offer. It
Okay.
was a hybrid course with some done for you elements. So it was like a
Got it.
live cohort, but with some done for you elements.
Nice. What are
Mhm.
some of the common mistakes a lot of people make when they're launching? Maybe there's some
Uh,
things they don't realize are mistakes until it's too late. And after they launch, they go, oh, I should have done that differently.
One of the things, I don't know if it's a tactical mistake, but it is a mindset. Um, it's a mindset mismatch,
Hmm.
maybe, is the we talked about the curve of what a launch looks like, right? You have the spike around open cart, you have your early bird, your early adopters, your people who are ready to say yes already. Those people get in. And then there's a dip. Mid cart, inevitably, no matter what you do, no matter what events you host, no matter what bonuses you pull out, is always going to be lower than open cart. That's just how the curve works. And I see a lot of people start to panic at that point. It's like, oh no, where'd everybody go? I made a bunch of sales, but now nobody's buying. What do I
Yep.
do? And they forget that sometimes 50%, 40 to 50% of your sales will come in on the last day.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a mind game, right? If you're in the middle and you're not seeing sales and you're like, is my launch failing? I don't know. And then you mentally give up and check out instead of realizing, oh no, I've got to push through all the way to the finish, because that's when my deadline dancers, procrastinators are all going to say yes.
So let's
So
tie that back to the long runway that we need. The long runway from start to finish needs to be longer. Do we still need a long open cart? Because we have that dip in the middle. From the time we say, hey, enrollment is open, to the time we say, hey, it's closing tonight at midnight, does that still need to be 5 or 6 days like it's always traditionally been? Or can we shorten that to where we don't experience such a lull in the middle and maybe it's just a 1, 2, 3 day open cart?
it could be if, and this is where I say it depends. And I'm going to keep saying it depends, because if you are trying to launch with a plan that doesn't feel good to you, if
Yeah.
it feels stressful, oh my gosh, only 3 days, that feels way too stressful for me. I'm concerned about making my numbers. I don't know how that's going to work. That is not the plan for you.
Okay.
In other words, if you feel more comfortable with a longer open cart, we can make that work. And just the first check is this going to work for me? And then whatever tactic you decide to implement, we figure out the strategy, the infrastructure that needs to be in place to make that work. So to answer your question, yes, open carts could be shorter if the pre-launch did its job beforehand.
Yeah. If you've built enough relationship, authority, know, like, and trust in that pre-launch sequence, so people are chomping at the bit, ready to enroll, then a shorter open cart makes sense. But if they
Exactly.
still need some more nurturing while the cart's open, more case studies, testimonials, then a longer cart could play into it.
And
Makes
you may not know until you test it. And
okay.
that's the other piece of this is I want to normalize building launches that are not your one big launch of the year that everything depends on, and
Yes.
instead
Feast or famine.
build build launches that are a bit lower risk, lower
Okay.
stakes, that give you the ability to iterate each time.
As we're talking about building that authority through the nurture sequence, the pre-launch content, the nurture sequence, the open cart and everything, What secret would you pass along to somebody just starting out, trying to build their authority and their influence in their niche so they have a successful launch? What secret would you pass along to them?
Just one. Really, before you make your launch plan, really think about what makes sense for you and your business in the stage that you're at right now. In other words, if you don't have an audience of several thousand or more people yet, then your launch is going to need more of that personal touch, right? You can still do a live conversion event, but it may rely more on partners. It may rely more on other things. Um, so, and the other thing about it, if you're launching for the first time and you've done the work of building the authority with your podcast, with your content, and you have people who are interested, um, don't be afraid to reach out to them, either proactively reaching out or sending one or two more emails than you may be comfortable with. I get asked, like, how many emails should I send on close cart day? And my answer is one more than you're comfortable with.
Great answer. I love it. So many people are afraid of cluttering an inbox or being unwelcomed there. But if you've done your work up to your launch, where you've been building the relationship, you build rapport, you're providing valuable content in the emails that you send, then your close cart day where, hey, I just want to make sure you don't miss out, give you one more chance to get in, don't forget about the bonuses. All the emails that you send on close cart day shouldn't be seen as a nuisance or an interruption because you've done the work leading up to it, building that rapport, building that relationship, building the authority. Uh,
Yeah.
People who only email once a month until they have a launch and then they start emailing every day, they're the ones that start being seen as, what are you doing in my inbox? But
Mhm.
if your audience is already accustomed to getting emails from you on a regular basis, then your closed cart emails shouldn't even ruffle a feather.
Right. And sometimes they will, and sometimes you'll get unsubscribes, and we just have to be okay with that. There are two tactical things that I would recommend that you do for list hygiene, um, so that you can send those open cart emails without fear. One is to have a campaign specific opt out. So at the bottom of your email, you say, at the beginning of your launch, you say, hey, I'm going to be sending some emails about this offer that I have coming up. Click here if you don't want any more on this topic, but to stay on the list. That is not the
So
wording that I normally use, but yes, it
when
opts
they
them out of
click,
that campaign.
yeah, when they click that link, it doesn't opt them off of your list. It just opts them out of that email campaign to for that particular launch.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
says, this is not the right timing for me now, but I really still want to hear from you. I want to get your podcast. I want to get your content. This is not the right timing for a launch. I'm going to opt out from this campaign.
Yeah.
So, highly recommend doing that.
I think that's a great tactic not a lot of people use often enough because
Yes.
I think it could not only um, serve your audience, but it keeps your list clean so you're not sending emails to people who don't need them.
Yeah, absolutely. And the second thing, from a tactical perspective, is um, not everyone needs to get every email. And so in your email service provider, you can see, if you set up the right tags, who has clicked so far, who's
Yeah.
opened and who's clicked. And we can consider those lists your warm and hot leads. And they have given you permission when someone open. I say when someone opens or clicks, they give you permission to send a little bit more email,
Yeah,
right?
they're
So for
they're
people who are
interested.
engaged, exactly.
Yeah,
So you can send more emails to people who are those opens and clicks.
great point. Great point. You um, teach your launch flow process in a way that takes that extra step and talks about getting in flow, that mental space that it takes, not just the tactical aspects of a launch. How can people learn more about your launch flow process?
Sure. Well, I have created a launch flow roadmap that walks you through the 5 flows: uh, cash flow, lead flow, idea flow, workflow, and energy flow. And those are really the building blocks. I'm not going to ever give you a do this exact thing this exact way to launch, um, because that your business is your business. But there is a way of thinking about it and a way of planning, which is what I lay out in the roadmap that will hopefully give you some guiding questions to help you think about the decisions that you need to make for your launch.
Very good. And where can we get that?
You can get that at dwcopy.com/roadmap.
dwcopy.com/roadmap. That link's in the show notes as well. So make sure you get over and download that. You're just a few months into the podcast. What's next down the road for you?
Growing the podcast, continuing to explore this topic. We've started to bring interviews into the show, which is really exciting. And I just want to bring this to more people, and I want to help more people launch better and enjoy what they're launching.
That's fantastic. I can't wait to see what the future holds, not only for your business and your podcast, but just for the journey you're on. I appreciate you spending some time today and sharing it with us. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Hey, make sure you grab Danielle's free gift. It's her launch flow roadmap. You can discover the 5 flows that she uses to create these amazing 7-figure launches so you can lean into the magic of what a launch can really be. You can find it at dwcopy.com/roadmap. That's dwcopy.com/roadmap. You can also find that in the show notes. And big thanks to Danielle for spending time with us on the show today. All right, let's jump into the question of the week. If you have a question for me that I can answer here on the show, by all means, you can email me in that question anytime. Email coach@podcasttalentcoach.com, and I'll see if I can get that question answered right here on the show. Today's question comes from Paula. She says, have you ever changed the name of your podcast after switching to a new theme or topic? My podcast name has been Probably Speaking for the past 4 years, and I'm switching to a completely new topic. I can't decide if I should keep it or change it. The name is fairly general, so there's that. What should I do? Paula, that's a great question. So here's the deal. I ran this podcast as Podcast Talent Coach for 550 episodes. The first 275 of those episodes were just me talking to myself, sharing great information with you. Then I started sprinkling in some interviews here and there. And after 550 episodes, I thought now is time to start interviewing people who are using their podcast to grow their business. But I didn't want it to be Podcast Talent Coach anymore because I didn't feel that it fit the purpose of the show anymore. I wanted to expand it and take it to that next step, which is why I changed the name from Podcast Talent Coach to Influential Voices of Authority, because I'm talking to people who are using their podcast to become influential and to build their authority in their niche. Same audience, just a different strategy. Business is still called Podcast Talent Coach. You can still find me at podcasttalentcoach.com, but we're talking about a little something different. So I just changed the name of the show and continued on. So as you consider whether or not to change the name of your show, the first thing you need to do is decide if you're still attracting the same audience. If you're still attracting the same audience, then just change the name and keep moving on. And you can usually do that in the back end of your audio host. I use Libsyn. I just went into Libsyn, changed the name there, went into Apple Podcasts, changed the name there, and I'm all good. Just kept rolling because I'm talking to the same crowd. So if you have the same audience, just change the name and keep rolling just like I did here. Now, if you have a different audience, so your podcast is called Probably Speaking. So I don't know. I'm guessing you're talking about being a public speaker. I don't know. If you're talking to the same audience, keep going. But if it's a different audience, now, if you're changing the name of the show because you have a different strategy for your business, you're trying to attract a different client, you're trying to create different content for a completely different avatar, then I would launch brand new. I wouldn't change the name of the podcast. I would fade that podcast, wrap it up, put a nice little bow on do a final episode. Thanks for being here. See you later. Go check out my new podcast. And then I would launch a brand new podcast under the different name if you're trying to attract a different audience. All right. So you need to decide the audience, and then the audience will decide whether or not you can just change the name and keep going, or if you need to start something new. All right. Thanks for the question, Paula. Appreciate it. If you have a question, email me at coach@podcasttalentcoach.com, and we'll see if we can answer it for you here on the show. If you like my help, you've published your episodes a lot of like what we talked about today. You've stayed consistent. Your content is good, but it's not doing anything to drive your business. You're not being seen as the authority in your niche. It isn't creating the level of influence or opportunity you hoped it would. People are listening to your show, but they're not taking action. They're not engaging. You sound professional, but you're not unforgettable, right? You're not that go-to expert. Well, I can help you with that, because the truth is your consistency alone, your great content isn't creating authority. Intentional leadership creates the authority. So if you're ready to turn your podcast into an authority engine and not just more content, if you'd like to move from being the best kept secret in your niche to being that sought after authority, let me audit your podcast and find the gaps for you. If you head over to podcasttalentcoach.com/coaching, you can click the button right there and apply to have a chat with me. We'll uncover your authority positioning problem. We'll develop your plan to succeed with your podcast and grow your business, and we'll see how I can help and support you to do that and reach your goals. You can find it all at podcasttalentcoach.com/coaching. On the next episode, we're going to talk with Kristen Nolan. Kristen is amazing. She's a senior account manager at Interview Valet. They help people find great interview opportunities. She transformed podcast interviews into strategic revenue engines. A little bit of what we talked about today, but taking it to that next step. She has over a decade of corporate sales and account management experience. She doesn't just book guest spots. She doesn't just get you on any podcast interview. She architects comprehensive podcast interview marketing campaigns. So not only do you get on other stages, but you turn listeners into leads and customers. And she'll show you how to find the right partners to put you in front of the right audiences at the right time to grow your business. It's a great interview, a great conversation I have, and it's all coming up for you on the next episode. Until then, step into your authority, and we'll see you next time.